Okay, everybody want to grab their seats? It's officially 8:30. We got a couple quick announcements. My name's Ron. I'm an alcoholic. And boy, it's good to be back, huh? On Saturday night in Doylestown, right? A couple quick announcements, though. The church mandated us to wear masks. Now, the speaker's going to come up and remove his mask while he speaks, but we have to wear them during the meeting. I apologize for that. It's not my rule. It's their sandbox. We're here at just the kindness of this church, and that's the one thing they asked us to do. So please do that. If you're not familiar, our group stays connected with a lot of the social media, Facebook. We have the Conscious Contact Speaker Group of Doylestown, which posts events going on in all the area around here. And if you have something of interest that's quality that you'd like to share with other people in AA, please post it there. There's speakers on there. There's downloads, stuff to keep you busy and connected forever. We also have a YouTube channel, the Conscious Contact Speaker Group of Doylestown, so that's another way to listen to these talks. Even you might hear something that you really like and want to share with somebody else, share it with them, because we're all about recovery here and passing this on to the next person. Our sister group is a Big Book study. It meets on Thursdays, 7:30 p.m. in person. Come see us if you like the Big Book. We love it. We seem to do good with it. And in this very room, every Monday night at 6 p.m., we have a step meeting. We bring in a different speaker, and I'll speak about 30, 35 minutes on the step, and then we open it for sharing. And those talks are also available on YouTube. So see us after the meeting for all this information. It's really great to have and to share. Nick's going to come up here and share this. Let's have some fun tonight.
Good evening, everybody. My name's Nick. I'm an alcoholic. I'm grateful to be here, and I'm gratefully clean and sober. Welcome to the Conscious Contact Speaker Group of Alcoholics Anonymous. This is a one-hour speaker meeting that meets every Saturday evening at St. Paul's Lutheran Church at 301 North Main Street at 8:30 p.m. in Doylestown, Pennsylvania. The business meeting for this group meets every Saturday at 7 p.m. to 7:30 right here. The purpose of this group is to provide a consistent message of hope and recovery through God reliance and service to others through the practice and teaching of the 12 steps. We record all speakers so that others may benefit from their message of recovery. If you wish not to be recorded, simply ask. This is an open meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. The group would like to welcome everyone, especially newcomers. Is there anyone new or from out of town that would like to introduce themselves with their first name? Go ahead. Welcome. Welcome. Go ahead, sir. Welcome. Hey, Greg, welcome. All right. Hey, Kyle, welcome. And welcome, everybody. Oh. Hey, Julie, welcome. I'm glad you're all here. Thank you. Okay. The Conscious Contact Speaker Group encourages sponsorship. Would anyone with working knowledge of the 12 steps and is willing to sponsor, please raise your hands. All right. Are there any announcements for the floor for the good of AA? We have meeting lists and big books on easy terms. Please see myself or any home group member after the meeting. If you cannot afford a big book, the Conscious Contact Speaker Group will give you one at no charge. Anyone willing to make donations for the purchase of big book and CDs to help those who can't afford them can put donations in the jar on the table in the back marked big book and CD donations. If you'd like a CD of any speaker past or present, please see myself or Ron before or after the meeting, and they are available free of charge. And with that, I have Eric to come up and read the AA preamble.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Eric, and I'm an alcoholic. This is the AA preamble. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is the desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And at this time, I'm going to bring up Lisa to read the 12 steps.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lisa. I'm an alcoholic. These are the 12 steps to Alcoholics Anonymous. 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7, humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. At this time, I'm going to turn the meeting back over to Nick.
We have a Southern tradition which states every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. At this time, we'd like to pass the baskets. We have no dues or fees, but we do have expenses. This group provides many services, and your donations cover rent, big books, CDs, events, and workshops. Once again, there's absolutely no smoking on church property. Please take a moment to silence your cell phones and try to limit movement during the meeting to avoid distractions. And now I'd like to introduce our speaker, a good friend of the Conscious Contact Speaker Group, Max Kay from the Medford Group, Men's Group in New Jersey.
Good evening. My name is Max. I am an alcoholic. I'm going to open this water because, hey, I'm nervous. So, okay. This is going to be fun. 45 minutes of me talking. Love it. You know. What do alcoholics love? Self. Talk about myself all for 45 minutes. I always like to say I got sober on August 24th, 2014. I have a sponsor. His name is Paul Spinner. He knows he's my sponsor. I call him, and he usually tells me to do what I don't want to do. I'm here to tell you how the program works. I'm here to demonstrate that if you, like me, if you self-diagnosed yourself, the only disease ever to self-diagnose, where I couldn't stay sober, no human power could keep me stay sober, no freaking prayer can keep me sober. But through the Fellowship of AA and the program, as outlined in the Big Book, I am not dead yet, so it seems pretty good. So I'm here to tell you what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. So clearly I have an accent, so that's a South Philly accent, It's, it's a typical one. No. So I was born in Siberia. My family history is quite rich. Holocaust, purges, Stalin, Tsar, you name it. Palaces in St. Petersburg, either burn them or have them, either one of those. We had those too. So my family is full of contradictions that never talked about anybody. I grew up with a violent, absolutely horrific father who was alcoholic, with whom a resentment was very nice to drink over. It was great. Because when I don't want to deal with myself, I put it all on you and I judge you and then get drunk. So what it was like, I thought I was an alien. I thought I didn't fit in anywhere. I was in Russia. I didn't feel I belonged to my Russia culture, American culture. In any society, I felt there was something wrong with me. I didn't know what it was. Early on, I started to discover something. I started to discover that if I put some kind of substance in my body, I get this kind of sensation. So some kind of feeling that I really liked, but I wasn't clear about it. So I tried, NyQuil, food. So I was over 210 pounds when I came to America. Well, partially because your American plates look like a Frisbee. I really thought they were Frisbees. I thought, why do we have Frisbees in the cupboards? So it gave me a good sensation. Then I started to look into like porn, TV, not sleeping. And then the NyQuil was interesting because I got something out of it, but I lost control. Something I didn't like, but I really wanted that something. And then I thought American football will solve all my problems. Unfortunately, people who play American football don't call it that. So clearly I didn't know what I was doing, and I knocked myself out the first practice. So my life was miserable, discontented, irritable. I couldn't solve my problems. And suddenly one day, there was this magic moment. I was drinking coffee in the morning, going to a practice. It was August of 2000. I came to America in 1988, June 12th at 2:15 p.m., so it's 2 years into my country, staying in this and suddenly I realized there's a bottle of vodka, and here's how I can diagnose myself as an alcoholic. Suddenly, I realized I want it, and I didn't say to myself, what would be the consequences of me drinking it? And as soon as I had a thought of a drink, I went and got it. And guess what I got? The first time I put that nice little bottle. Fortunately, if I was Russian, I would say vodka, but it was wrong. That got me drunk first time. And I remember I tried it. Put my lips, I drank it, and I got this moment of, finally, I found this moment of release from self that I was looking for. That NyQuil didn't give me, that porn didn't give me, but this thing gave me. This release from self. Finally, I don't have to be filled with fear. I don't have to be filled with shame. I don't have to think about all the consequences of my action. I could be whoever I wanted to be, however I wanted to be, and that was great. I didn't care how I get it, but from then on, until 2014, I would chase that down to gates of hell. That was, we were poor, so I had access. I didn't have much access to resources, so I learned early on. Most people who are drug dealers have a lot of liquor because they don't touch it. They always touch alcohol, not alcohol with drugs. So I got to know drug dealers, local drug dealers, and I'm a alcoholic variety. If I want it, I get it, and what I want is that alcohol. You see, the problem with me is that there are two parts to alcoholism. First part is that I have this physical manifestation of my disease called the allergy. Once they put it in me, I can't stop it. Now, there were moments when I could stop drinking, and that was the beautiful magic moments. This magic moment, the lies that I would tell myself that I was still in control, because in 5 times out of 100, I could stop drinking. And 95% I could not, most of it because I don't remember. I genuinely don't remember my 23rd year of my life. I don't remember. Blackouts were constant affairs because I didn't know what it was. So the first one is physical manifestation of the allergy. The second thing was that once I have a thought of a drink, there's nothing I could say to stop myself from drinking. I found out this a very horrible way the last time I drank. I had a lot of friends who drink and drive, and they died. A lot of people died. And how we celebrate, we would go to their favorite bar, or the bar from which they drove, they died. That was a good way of alcoholic, filled with self. I remember the last time I had a drink, which is in 2014, I remember thinking to myself, I had a car for the first time in my life. I did all kinds of cures you can think of, psychologist cures, sex cures, geography cures, job cures. I moved from a fancy place in Philadelphia to a fancy place in Margate, New Jersey. For the first time I needed a car. And I said to myself, and this is like the 10th or 12th time I'm trying to quit drinking. Next, you don't drink and drive? No more drinking. Why don't you go exercise and run on the beach and think about, ayahuasca or something, I don't know, and on the beach. So I ended up going on a date, and this beautiful woman asked me, why don't we get a bottle of wine? And I said, my brain says, well, wait a second, you don't drink, okay? And my mouth said, yes, let's get a bottle. And my brain said, wait, what the hell just happened? Wait a second, I thought you don't drink. Well, why don't you just say 1 bottle? And my mouth said 3, and I ended up drinking all of them and making a really bad scene, and then I woke up. It didn't give me the relief I was seeking. It no longer was fun. And I don't remember where I put my car. It found out it was on my front lawn, but I don't remember where I put my car. Now, you see, that's insanity, My wife and I had a dinner one time, and she had a beer. She went to the bathroom, and I realized, wait a second. This woman who walked in, had a beer, walked out, the same woman. There was no personality change. You put one in me, I become either happy and joyous, buy everybody drink, or depressed and sad. Don't you know how difficult it is for me? Personality change is the second manifestation of the disease. So there are two conditions of alcoholism. The first is that the physical nature, and the second thing is the psychological nature. Now, you would say, Max, we are in Alcoholics Anonymous. This means that I have a problem with alcohol. And I would say to you, no, it's not. I did not have a drinking problem. What I have a problem is a sober life problem. I can't stay sober because I don't like sober life. It's not fun for me. It's not joyous. It's not happy. I'm not in control. All the demons that I suppress with alcohol just come out, and I have to deal with two things that I don't want to deal with: reality and responsibility. Oh no. Oh no. Oh, you gave me a job and gave me promotion in office? Oh, I'm not doing this job. I'm just going to coast through. Don't you know how difficult it is for me? Don't you know that I'm full of fear and scared? Don't you know I'm better than you are, so you should probably just cower and do my job? That type of thing. It's insanity. My problem isn't alcohol. Alcohol is the solution to my sober life because, hell, I actually didn't want to deal with my problems. I remember sitting, I was in a very nice neighborhood, on a top condo in Philadelphia, overlooking a beautiful area, Philly. And I had a girlfriend / fiance. I cheated on her a lot of times, so you had to keep her going. And I had a great job. I had a great promotion, beautiful suits. And I was sitting in my living room, and I just wasn't happy. I could crawl out of my skin. I just couldn't. Sobriety is my problem. It's solution, alcohol. It worked all the time until it stopped working. Now, you say, Max, it's your experience. All right. Here's another one. My sponsee calls me on the eve of last Christmas. I was about to speak, and he calls me, and he says, hey, I'm at a mall with my daughter, and you can hear in the background. There's only like a 5-year-old girl screaming in the background of happiness. That's a beautiful shrieking sound that girl, I think I only heard it for 3 seconds. It's a very powerful. And he says, yeah, I have a job. I have my family back. I have a career. And he says, I am miserable. I don't like this. His daughter is happiest. His family is joyous. 5 days later, we found him dead in the parking lot of overdose. You see, the problem is not the drugs. It's just the sober life. Therefore, what is the program? What is the program that I'm supposed to be working? So, that's an interesting. What is when we tell newcomers you're supposed to work the program? It's great. So when I came here, broken. That last drink, when I finally found my car, which was in front lawn, and I remember looking in the mirror of the man I didn't like. I hated everything about this man. The problem is, of course, is me, and I hated everything. And I didn't have a solution to life anymore. If I had another exit, I would have taken it. I had no exits. I had no exits to life. I burned everybody. Nobody called me. Nobody cared about me. Or I made sure they didn't care about me by exhausting them with my damn problems. So I'm 26, 28. I don't know. I'm old enough at that point. And I look in the mirror and I hate everything. And I look down and I said, God, I need help. I don't know why I said God. I've been praying. When I came to America, every night, even in a blackout or not, I would say the Lord's Prayer. I would pray. I had a prayer life. I knew I had a white light experiences. The question is not that you have a white light experience. It's what am I seeking with a white light experience? I use the white light experience to say, look how important I am. Let me go get more drunk. And God will solve all my problems by some magic power. That's what I thought. So it didn't work out. So I'm 26 or 28. I'm not sure. And So I started to do what I love to do the most, is to blame. So I started blaming. No, don't you know, the Holocaust, the purges, the Tsars, the Stalins, the 6,000% inflation rate, I was sexually molested, I was physically beaten, I was left to die several times, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. You know, all those problems I started blaming, those things that I used to blame to get drunk. So, all right, so that doesn't. So I went to Al-Anon. I thought that was a great place. A forum to blame, I thought. That was it. Which it isn't, but I thought it was. And suddenly, sometime in August, I walk into this meeting, about the size. I'm like, oh, it's a pretty big Al-Anon meeting. Oh, okay, that's great. More people to hear my problems. So I'm sitting in the back by the door, and I'm wearing fancy clothes because, hey, I have no sense of self. So let me show you how important I am by fancy clothes. So I'm sitting there, and suddenly, I realize I'm in an AA meeting because they say, hey, we're going to welcome to AA. So I'm like, okay. So I'm sitting, I'm too polite to leave. And there's a speaker here. He's in my phone. He's Matt the One. Why is he the one? He's the one who actually told me what my problem was. He didn't tell me that about his blackouts, although he did say some things about it. He told me about how miserable his life is, how hard it was for him to figure things out, and that alcohol was his only solution, and how much pain and suffering he had to go through and cause other people to do that through his drinking. And I thought, how does this person know my story? And second of all, which is always about me, because I felt very, very uncomfortable. And I realized in the AA, if I feel too comfortable, something isn't working. I'm not working the proper program, because truth is uncomfortable. It's supposed to be. That's what makes me willing to be broken so that the light can shine through. So I'm sitting there, I'm very uncomfortable. People are making me really uncomfortable. All your stories, you go, I can start to identify and relate. Oh my God, how do you know this? How do you know that? How did you solve this problem? As soon as the meeting ends, I run away. Because as an alcoholic, love running, running away. Suddenly, there was a miracle happened. The only person who keeps in touch with me is a friend of mine. His name is Jack. He was 22 years sober this year, but he was 15 years sober 7 years ago. So clearly I can't do math. So, and he calls me, he says, Max, I'm visiting my mom in Wildwood. You want to go hang out? So I got to Jack. I said, hey, Jack. He's the only friend. I don't tell him about my problems. I just say, hey man, I went to an AA meeting and he made me really uncomfortable. Now, Jack didn't tell me didn't ask the 22 questions, didn't ask it about blackout. The only thing that Jack said, well, Max, if it's uncomfortable, it's probably the truth. You should go and check it out. That was it. That was his only thing experience. He's the only person who keeps in touch with me. So, okay, I have no solution to life. I tell you people, if I had another relationship, another job in me, another geographical cure, another this cure, whatever cure there is, I would have taken it. But I had no solution to life. I was desperate. I needed help. And so I went back to the same meeting. I remember standing at the meeting door. It was just like the one up there. And I'm standing there, and they have no physical power to open the door. You see, the truth is really heavy and uncomfortable because I don't like it. Because I'm not in control. So I'm standing at the door, and I just can't open the door. I can't. And for some unknown reason, I asked God again, God, where do you want me to go? Do you want me to go to Al-Anon? So we're still meeting Al-Anon? AA or home? And I'm standing there, and I'm thinking like, oh my God. And suddenly, I know that the door was opened through my physical nature, but God gave me the power to open the door. And I wish I can tell you, after the door got open, I turned to go to AA. The angels sang, and the magic carpet appeared, and everything was great and fancy. It wasn't. It was absolutely horrific. What happened is that everything that I ever thought, that I've suppressed, that I never taken responsibility, every lying disease, every comparison suddenly to crush down. You know, I drank to numb it away, to run away, to not feel, to not be responsible, and suddenly just crushing, and just waves of crushing. I mean, emotional waves, and I'm sitting at this first meeting, and I say, hey, this is anybody's first meeting? I say, hey, my name is Max. It's my first meeting. People come to me and they tell me something. I don't remember. As a newcomer, I only have 2 seconds attention span. Suddenly, I look out, and I see, it was pre-COVID, of course, so I could see people's faces, and I see that people had a smile. Now, as an alcoholic, I'm very sensitive to lying because I'm very good at it. I'm a very good liar, and I'm very sensitive to being authentic because I'm not authentic. So, I spend my entire life trying to be someone I'm not. And I'm looking, and I see genuine smiles. I see people who were happy, who were content, who even though with their fake teeth, they still were happy, And that was great. And so this guy came and gives me this big book and says, hey, this is a book. It's not a book. It's a book that we use as a basic text. Basic means simple. Means that everything you ever need is here. I'm like, okay. So what do I need? Now, I get a sponsor. Well, when I say I get a sponsor, I always like to think like, oh, I took suggestions and was so willing to do the work. I wasn't. I was not. Suddenly, a guy shows up and is like, hey, do you have a sponsor? I'm like, no, get me a sponsor. I'm like, okay. It showed up, and I'm like, all right, I don't know what's happening. So again, no solution, no exit. If I had another exit, I would have taken it. And then so I thought for the 30 days, let me make it a goal. I'm a businessman. I'll make it a goal. I will work at it. I will stay sober. And so I got my 30-day chip, this thing. Not working any program. AA pretty much, sobriety is easy in AA. Just show up to meetings, go to be service, get a sponsor. That's it. You pretty much meetings, and I pretty much can get sobriety. Not recovery, sobriety. So I got sober. So it means that I am not solving any of my problems. I'm not dealing with anything. I just go into meetings and try and, complaining about my life. So I was given a chip, a 30-day chip. I'm like, okay, thank you. Yay, goal completion. Without thinking it's one day at a time program, I thought it was just like, it's a chip program. So I ended up, they tell you not to, a couple things. First thing they tell you, not to have liquor in your house. That might be a good idea. And I have liquor in the house. And I told this to an old timer. He drove with another person to dump my alcohol. Now, I'm trying to be sober. I was angry at them dumping my alcohol. Selfishness does unders to the extreme. Second thing they tell us is people, places, things, situations, try to avoid it for now. Try to avoid it until you get on the spiritual basis and you have a solution to life that actually works, because I don't. And I didn't follow suggestions. I'm just here for the show. Again, good suit. So, good show. So what I did is I did people, places, things, situations, so day 32. And guess what? Oh my God, I was offered a drink. Oh my God, and guess what I did? I had no defense against the first drink. What gets me drunk is the first drink because of the allergy and mental obsession. And then, I have this drink. It's 10 a.m. I have this drink because, hey, that's totally in my left hand. And again, I have no physical human power to stop what's going to happen. I can feel my hand. I can feel the sensations. I can feel it. For some unknown reason, I reached out and grabbed a 30-day coin. I have this little tug, and it's just like, okay. And something other than me, my power released it. And I walked away. Again, I would love to tell you. And then I did the program as was prescribed. Told my sponsor, tried to be honest, worked the program. Nope. Avoided it at all costs. Come on, I'm a selfish person, alcoholic. This is not going to be easy. Because I'm not making it easy. Because I'm vague. Second step tells me if it's not clear, it's my insanity. If I don't get clear, that's going to be complete insanity. So there's a reason why there's a think. So I started working the program. So what does that mean? So it took me a while to get this. It took I know a lot of things were not to do. First I thought, I'm supposed to tell all of you all my problems all the time. I'm supposed to tell you how I feel about those problems all the time. I'm supposed to do some kind of a prayer and some magic will happen and something, blink of an eye, all my problems will go away. I thought the spiritual life means that I just add prayer and meditation to my life. I thought that was it. I thought that was the extent of spiritual life. I thought that sobriety or recovery actually means that I'm supposed to have fun fees, I'm supposed to go to HNI commitments, some kind of commitment. I'm supposed to show up, I'm supposed to all that stuff. But I never understood what is the program. Well, let's say, Max, the program is the steps. I'm like, well, the steps are kind of, what are the steps of guideposts? What are the guideposts for? Okay, I had to go back to what is my actual problem. Alcohol is not my problem, it's a solution. My problem is, and it always is that I can't live a sober life left to my own devices. Again, at 10:30 in the morning, I will order a drink again. No matter how many many decisions I've made, I will, left to my own devices, will drink again. And for us to drink is to die, just like with my son Steve, who in 5 days will find him dead. It's a guaranteed life. So the program of recovery for me has to be very clear. So what is the program? The program has to solve my problems. I have to have principles, directives, rules, suggestions that solves all my problems, just as the book says. If it doesn't solve my problems, why am I staying sober? Listen, this program, is a fantastic program. It works. I thought when we read how it works, honesty, and it repeats honesty 3 times, I thought I was supposed to be honest with you about me, how I feel, about my past. I didn't know that honesty means that I'm supposed to honestly make effort to practice these principles in all my affairs. I'm supposed to be responsible to get this program on the terms that they make sense to me. Because what's my problem? It's obviously sober life. But what makes my sober life miserable is selfishness, self-centeredness to the extreme. That we think is the root of our problem. Selfishness in all its forms, especially fear. I was just earlier this afternoon, I was talking to a newcomer, and I said, how come fear in the big book says we should be classified as fear should be classified as stealing? Like, why does it say? What do I steal? What do I... It says there, so it must be clear. What do I steal? I can't steal from me. God is ultimate, so how can I steal from the ultimate? Well, the stealing seems to me is that unless if I'm full of fear, I'm full of self, because selfishness and fear come, actually, if you read selfishness and self-centeredness, that we think is the root of our problems, and then you read that in all forms of its fear, the first thing is word used is fear. So when I'm full of fear, I steal all of your time and resources to make me feel good. Yay, again for me, because I don't think about you when I'm full of fear. I think of how I feel, how I'm feeling. But you know how hard it is for me. If AA is supposed to solve my problems, it's supposed to remove my fear. Now, the big book doesn't say remove. It says, God, please remove my fear and direct my attention to what you have me be. Every time there's a prayer, there's always countervailing my action. I'm supposed to be someone different. Not different, meaning I have to take the action different. So what actions am I taking? And the big book keeps saying, if you want to last in sobriety, the only path is intense work with another alcoholic, another coworker, another project. So for me, that was difficult. Now, this path took me forever to get, because I really thought AA was a good way for me to feel good about who I am. I started working the program by finding a lot of sponsors. I think I went through 7 of them, because I was still looking for the right answers that fit me. Again, I was all thinking about how to make my life work. And, life lived by itself is pretty miserable, because I was still with the same anxieties. I was still filled with the same problems, spending more money than I need, having relationships that are meaningless, basically using people for what I want, chasing the big grand old money. It was all about how I would make me feel. And I'm, at this point, accumulating years of sobriety, yet I have no sponsees. Nobody wants my sobriety. Nobody wants. And the best part, I found a nice little group in Center City, Philadelphia, that we talk about psychologists. What did your psychologist say? Well, my psychologist says, that was a share. It's about how does my psychologist make me feel about this thing? Well, I fired this psychologist. The other one is better. Again, that's always to fit my model of what I think are the principles. I'm working Max's principles of program, not this program's of steps to recovery. So, ripping and running, this is fantastic. 4 years sober. Nobody wants me as a sponsor. And suddenly, I exhaust every exit. So at this point, I exhaust all my finances. I hit my bottom in AA about 2 years ago, where I was just like, this program isn't working for me. And then I finally asked the guy who I didn't want to ask in the beginning. I asked Paul Sinner to be my sponsor. Paul has 30 years of sobriety. Really, he's Russian, so I think he'll get it. So he tells me, Max, what are you doing with your life? I'm like, well, I'm trying to solve my problems by prayer. I'm like, but that's not how the program works. The program is based on principles that are based, that are spiritual principles, because they're based on the universal laws that govern this universe. So if you align to it, that's spiritual. But I thought prayer and meditation is like, prayer and meditation is just one of many tools that are necessary for completion. There's hundreds and hundreds of other. Each steps have its own have its own history, its own set of principles. I'm like, okay. He's like, well, let's do the steps. And he didn't ask me to write like 64 pages of 4-step. My first 4th step took me 2 weeks to write. I had nearly nervous breakdown where I had to take a week off. I took 7 days to go through it. And then at the end of it, I'm like, whew, that was something. That was good. Again, the 4th step is designed for me to see how my life lived by my own shortcomings, i.e. the principles of match, how my life really is. And then realize that left by own devices, I will live this life again. That's what's guaranteed in the program. So the 5th step was, again, I thought that was 7 days of joy. 6 and 7 were kind of vague. There's only a couple paragraphs on them each. I didn't know that that's a crucial step in the program. This is where I really commit to living a new principles that are based on helping other people, principles that are based making me uncomfortable when I'm supposed to be of service, showing up and doing the work I'm assigned to, being responsible with my life in all my affairs. I thought it was just a prayer. Again, I thought prayer is some kind of a magic power. Again, I'm alcoholic. I look for magic powers. I put this magic substance into my body. I feel good about myself. I thought that's what prayer is supposed to do. I give you this formula, and you give me this outcome. I really thought that was it. And then he tells me, well, that's not it. You really need to work through to understand the concepts of AA better. So read the book. So as I started reading the book, I got very clear that anytime any concept is vague to me, that's, like I said, it's my insanity. So every concept in AA is clearly defined. So I come to the 8th step. And 8th step, I have 175 different institutions, people, places that I've harmed, and all of them I'm not willing to make any amends. I'm like, hell no, Well, what the hell, $10 million? No, I'm not paying that out. Screw that. So being difficult as I was, I decided, I'm going to test AA because, let's see how this program really works. And I said, the person I hate the most, the person I will not try to be, is my mom. I said, my mother is such an evil person. She don't you know what she did and blah blah blah. And my sponsor, all right, wow, okay. Let's just pray to have willingness, get into service with others. Start cleaning up your life, start living cleaner, start being accountable, start working the principles. And miracle happens when I direct my attention towards God. And direct attention for me is I look to God and I look to the principles. All the principles are clear. If I live by the principles, that's how we know God. And in fact, that's what it says in the 3rd step. We know the actual last paragraph of the 3rd step says, if you follow this we think that if following by these principles, we'll know God's will. God's will isn't some hey Max, you're going to make $10 million a year. It would be great, but no, that's not the point. The point is, if I live the principles, in other words, if I take the action, that's God's principles. Only through action do I discover God's will. It's by right acting rather than right thinking that I discover what God's will for me is. So because I'm not in control. Because when I'm trying to think things why. When I'm in the why business, that's a management question, correct? Why? I'm in the how business. How do I stay sober? How do I make my life not miserable? Life worth living. So I'm in this. I'm working the program. Suddenly, so my mom is on the first list. I'm not making amends to anybody else. I'm super angry at this woman. Don't you know? Blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Fill in the gaps. And suddenly, I got a hold of a picture of myself when I was 4 years old. Now, 5 years old. And so it's like 89, 90. So there's a color picture. Color pictures, now you say, you capitalist Americans think color pictures are quite abundant. In Russia, they're not. In Soviet Union, they're not. You have to save money. You have to go to a special place. You have to make a reservation. It's really expensive. And my mom, who is designing half the city we live in, she doesn't make a lot of money. And and my father, who's a drunk alcoholic, is taking all the money away. And my mother really wants to have a color picture of me. And so she makes a reservation, very expensive. She makes it professional photos, and there's a picture of me, and I have a little bow tie. And this little damn bow tie actually gave me a lot of relief, because I realized when I was looking at that bow tie, I wanted a bow tie, fancy things. Already early on, I wanted fancy things. But we didn't have bow ties. So my mom took her favorite blouse, cut it up, and made me a bow tie. So I thought, yeah, that's the evil woman that I hate, when I look for God and I take the action, as the book says, God will reveal himself. And, we don't overcome here anything in this program. We outgrow it. And outgrow is, a concept that is designed everywhere in the religious and psychological field. Most problems are not tractable. They cannot be solved with it, so they have to be outgrown. And God gave me the power to outgrow it because I was looking for a solution. I was working for a solution. I was dealing with my life on a life terms, as the colloquium would go. So I decided to make amends to my mother, and I'm like, okay, God, I need all my network to support me, all my psychologist, of course. I'm still thinking I can run my life. And then for my sponsor, he says, okay, you gotta prepare what you're gonna say. We don't apologize, and we don't apologize in this program. We make amends. Amends means you make the fence stronger. I don't know. Whatever he uses. I didn't understand what he was trying to tell me. Basically, he said, if you make something wrong, you're trying to make things right. So that's what you say. Hey, I stole from you. I took your peace of mind. I cut you out of life. I had I was a blackout. I moved in with you randomly without even asking you, and you kicked me out, and I keep resentment against you. Wow, I was surprised why you did that. I stole from you. But the biggest thing is that I was not a son as it was prescribed to be. If I want to play a role in life that is worth living for, and that's what the last column in the fourth and fifth step tells me. Really? Was I really the son that I had to have the capacity to be? Did I provide comfort and security? Did I provide peace of mind? Did I provide clarity? Was I supported? Now, we have, of course, boundaries, and I know boundaries, and it's fantastic, and I'll detach with love. Fantastic, yes. My mother is insane, but, I still detach with love. Nevertheless, was I really playing the role that was given to me, or did I want the other person, again, full of self, did I want the other person to play the role I assigned them that makes me comfortable, and then I will do the right thing. Only once the other person is doing it, I'll do the right thing. And clearly that's not how it works. So I made amends to my mom. We cried. We both of us cried. It was great. My tears, 99% of them are false because they're not. What I think is going to happen didn't happen. We made amends. And the only thing my mother wants is that she always tries to be part of my life. That's all she does. It is difficult for her. She has her own mental conditions. She has the difficulties. And God bless her. But for me, I'm not here to fix her. I'm not here to, I'm not here to provide for her emotional needs. I'm there to provide, to be a son. To provide the peace of mind is different than emotional needs. It's that she knows who I am, she knows who I am, she knows that there's the support, obviously, within the boundaries. We're not a servile, as the book says. We're not servile. It means that I don't forego my needs to meet another person's needs. And so it was beautiful. So 10th and 11th step. 10th step I thought is, I just write, there's a bunch of questions and I write them out. And I thought that was the 10th step. But the actual 10th step is the daily living. It's culmination of all the preceding steps. And as the book says, 10, 11 is where we live. 10 is where I work on, this is a lifetime process. The principles that are prescribed are not something that goes from yes to no. They're not a binary. Then it's not just someday I will click on it. I have to work at them. I have to perfect them. Progress and perfection. Most of them are hard to get. And, that's why I have support, the fellowship, the meetings. And the best thing, I started getting, by the time I got to the 10th step, I started getting, and this is 4 years sober, I started getting sponsees because people wanted my sobriety. People would saw something in it. Because I started sharing less about problems. I started saying, hey, I had a work problem. And then I applied the spiritual principles. And then this is how it's solved. And this is how I'm trying to continue to evolve this program. I stopped just saying, oh, God will solve them problems. And I said, this is what I've taken. I prayed on it. I did this action. I received this result. This is how life happens. I started to really confront what's not working in my life. Where is this fear robbing me and everybody else of me being of service to God? And so by the time I got to the 11th step, truly got to the 11th step, I discovered that I needed additional religious. I got a religion. It was beautiful and fun. And then my mother, this is the evil woman that I thought she was. My mother said, hey, Max, she invites me to dinner. Randomly. I'm like, okay, we have dinner once in a while. I'm like, fantastic. I show up and she sits me down. She's a Russian mother, means lots of food, lots of stories, lots of guilt. But mostly stories. It's wonderful. It was just, she started telling me about something. And she says, Max, hey, listen, there's a woman that is your type that I know. And I'm like, wait a second, how does my mother know? Then I tried to cut her out. I'm playing these games with people that don't know what I'm playing with. And she said, yeah, there's a woman, she's your type. Would you like to get to know her? And I said, okay, let's do this. All right. So we have a potluck. I meet this woman, this wonderful woman to whom I'm married. Last year we got married. He said the steps work when outside of what I ever thought. I met this great woman. I thought I knew who I was. I thought, I'm going to be urbanite for the rest of my life, Center City, Philadelphia. And now I'm in suburbia. I complain about my lawn a lot. So, because I have no clue how to take care of it. I used to have a lawn about A-big. Now I have a big lawn. I'm like, oh my God, so much abundance. Oh God, So it's so hard, Look at my life. But when you start working the principles and start solving the problems of life, they become amazing. It's such a joy to, I had a difficulty with dating. I know we talk about AA a lot, but AA brought me to the truth that I have other conditions, other spiritual disease maladies that I needed help. So I'm in DA, Debtors Anonymous. I'm in AC, Adult Children of Alcoholics, because I really do need to deal with PTSD, the trauma, I can only be criminal. My life is so like criminal hostage situation so many times, and I really do need to deal with the conditions. Those are horrific life moments that I need to be responsible for. God is not going to make me white as snow. They're not just going to go away because I have God and I'm working the principles, and I do have peace of mind. And then suddenly, as I work in this program, started to be responsible for my life, suddenly I started to get something in life that I've never had before. I got this sit in a meeting, and instead of being just eaten and destroyed by this sense of fear and uncomfortableness, suddenly I started feeling it's like, wow, there's a peace of mind. And how peace of mind for me feels is like, when a hot day you suddenly get hit by this beautiful fan, air conditioning, and then it goes away. Like that's how I felt. I'm like, and I came to finally, I'm telling the truth. I'm trying to work in the program. I came to an old timer. I'm like, hey, what's happening with me? Am I finally having this emotional breakdown, people tell me about it. He's like, no, there's a good Al-Anon saying, inch by inch by inch, which means that as I work the program, the God of my understanding will bring peace of mind. And for the first time in my life, I realized peace of mind is something that I was aiming for. I thought peace of mind would be if I have, six-figure income, if I have a corner office, all the status things you possibly can think of. I didn't know peace of mind would mean that I know who I am. When I say, hey, my name is Max, I'm alcoholic, what I'm actually meaning between I am an alcoholic is I'm hopelessly, completely defeated by alcohol, and there's nothing I can do about it. So please help me. Kind of like that's what shoved into between I am Max, I'm alcoholic. So where I live, where I work the principles of sobriety by being of service, discussing, trying to understand what the book really tries to tell me. Try to teach people. The most difficult part of the program is trying to explain it to somebody else. That's why the sponsees are here, because I really have to truly explain how this concept of recovery really works. What does it mean, spiritual awakening? What is spiritual growth? Why do we have prayers, but that prayers are not the only solutions to our life problems? Those are really concepts that are clear in a book but need to be explained, need to be worked through. So as I'm working the program, life gets really lifey. It's difficult to deal with death and trying to plan. I had a plan for the retirement, plan for people, and how it is my life today is the most incredible thing I've ever thought possible. I'm married. I have a good job. I work for a big bank. I do great things but for me, it's the ability to discuss and talk to and relate and be belonged to. Again, I thought I was different because I didn't understand that. I didn't understand what was happening to me. I didn't understand all these forces in my life, and it came to me that because I was trying to think that I can somehow fix myself. I thought I was broken. I really thought there's something needs to be fixed in me. Like I have to change for you to like me. I didn't know that that's a lie. It's a full, complete selfishness that somehow I need to be someone different. They say that faith is a gift. You just need to accept it. And working with the sponsees, I realized whenever I give a gift to somebody, I give my gift to I bought a car for my wife that I drive, but it's a car for her when we have kids. We'll switch cars, and I bought a car for her to enjoy it, and bought as she wanted. I didn't want her to change anything. I just wanted her to enjoy life, to be complete, to know her partner is behind her. And I realized that's what faith is. Faith I don't have to invent. Faith is given if I trust the principles of the program. Faith is not going to change me to somebody else. Like I'm alcoholic. World Health Organization, WHO, classifies alcoholism as incurable disease. And AA, when we talk about recovery, never does talk that somehow I'll be immune to alcohol. That's not a condition. What it means to recover, meaning that I no longer find sobriety to be a horrible life to live. I no longer find that my problems are so intractable that only alcohol can relieve me of my burden of self. And self is that's where the struggle is every day, day in, day out. Where am I selfish? Where do I try to get my own? And I'm filled with fear. I have a lot of fear, a lot of self-pity. It still to this day continues to dog me. The analysis of fourth and fifth step, what I've learned, is that I really do need to take a look and tell the truth. Where am I not? What's not working? What are the conditions that are not connecting? And then really, so the first step tells me that I need to identify a problem. The second step, to believe there is a solution. And the third step is to do something about it. Every problem in my life has a solution in the steps. Now, that's why I have a sponsor who keeps telling me a lot of things that I don't want to hear, which is fantastic, because that's what the program. Not that I'm doing something wrong, it's just there's always room to grow in this program. Now, I find that in times that I do find that it's difficult to I have drunk dreams to this day, once in a while. And the thing is not to freak out. That as I was told by one of the sponsors I fired, he said that, hey, you alcoholic, you will continue to have alcohol dreams and thoughts. That's not a condition. That's not how we measure success in this program. How do we measure success in this program? That's a good question. Is it how much prayer I do every day? Is it hours I spend? I go twice a year. I go to a 3-day prayer meditation. Is that how I'm supposed to measure my sobriety? How much time and hours I spend in prayer, meditation, and reading spiritual books? That's not how we measure success. The success in this program is measured by the principles I live and how less selfish I become. More God, less me, as an old-timer once told me. That's how I measure success. How close am I getting to the progress of the principles? There are principles in each of those steps, and that's the progress that I must take every day. Now, my relationship, and the hardest relationship I think is to build for any alcoholic. Based on my experience and experience of my sponsees, is a romantic relationship. I really think that's the hardest test of any relationship. And so I've been now with my wife for 4 years now. We have a loving relationship that is based on the principles of this program. Yeah, even in the midst of me now working the program properly, if I continue to orient myself towards the ideal that is described in the book, the ideal that I will not reach, where I can be a partner, where I can be a husband, where I can be an intimate, romantic, sexual being, but at the same time really be in touch with my feelings, her feelings, have difficult conversations, confront the truth, because truth will set me true. And the closer I tell the truth to my wife, truth plus love is what makes the relationship. Staying communications. I used to use people. This is how my relationship was. I was 18 years old. I was in college. I was in Rutgers, Camden. If you know Camden. Camden was the worst place in the country. Still is. But I went there and I thought, hey, look at the drug dealers. Great, more alcohol. I walk in my first party. I'm 18 years old. I'm thinking I'm hot stuff, and I walk in and there's a woman passed out on an armchair. I'm like, yes, this woman. And I spent 8 years with that woman. 8 years with that woman. Because, hey, she got it. I thought, that's what I thought was a convenience. Relationships of convenience. I had friends who were drink more than me. I have enablement situation. I created my whole world to make me feel good so that I don't have to look at my problems. And today I have to measure my success of how much I'm actually trying to be of service and help other people solve their problems. I'm not solving their problems. I'm being how I can be taking care of their needs. How to, that's the romantic part of life and intimate part is based so much more in communication and love and choice. As alcoholic, one of the things I hear the most is what am I really want? Because if I tell you what I want, it means I will fail. Again, it will prove that, selfishness or centeredness, how can I fail? Now, to say that I want is I want sobriety above all else, because without sobriety, nothing works. If I work on on spiritual, which is the spiritual ground, the principles, who I am, we say life designed for living that really works. Correct. What does the design mean? What is it based on? It's based on again, going back to the principles. And if you don't know the principles, please ask your sponsor. They know it. Let them explain. Work through it. It's we have another saying, think. That's fantastic. Easy does it doesn't mean that I'm supposed to do a step a year. I'm supposed. I actually heard that once. Somebody recommended it. The easy does it means that I need to apply each of the principles to the best of my ability, because I will fail. But the faith is there because even in failure will I succeed, because if I stay not sober, if I keep being recovered from a hopeless state of mind by practicing these principles, all my problems will be solved. And I think I'm all out of time, so thank you for letting me share.
Let's thank Max one more time. Thank you, sir. Let's thank Rich and Howard for the setup and the coffee, which is always... what else we got to do? We're going to need a little help cleaning up here. Don't forget the meeting after the meeting. If you need a big book, if you need a sponsor, if you need a 12 and 12, or any help, hang out after the meeting. See any of these guys around here. There's more than one person here that can be of service. And if you'd like to be of service, stay with us. We got a nice way of closing. I guess we'll just stay in our place, and we'll, if you care to join us, we'll take a moment of silence. Do with it what you like, and if you care to join us, we'll end with the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we